So our guest today on the Docpreneur Leadership Broadcast and Podcast is Maria Angelova, and she is the founder and CEO of Rebellious International, which is a lifestyle and wellness company. Maria, we're glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me on board, Michael. I'm really excited.
So before we jump into what you're doing at Rebellious and how you're working with doctors and with patients of those doctors' offices and just community work, we want to talk to you a little bit about your background, what drew you into lifestyle and wellness, and interest in living healthy, because it's something we're all watching very carefully right now. We've had more time in this quarantine and pandemic to evaluate our health and make some changes. I had one person tell me the other day, she said, since this quarantine started and this pandemic started, I've been eating salads every day.
Wow.
5 pounds. So, it was, it has definitely put a lot of things on the radar for a lot of people. But tell us a little bit about your background and where you've come from to bring you here today.
Sure. So I have a little bit of an unconventional background for what I do now. I actually went to undergraduate and graduate school, and I have degrees in finance. So something quite on the other side of wellness. But since very young age, since 16, I got into fitness, into teaching workout classes. So that has been something that I have done all along the 25 plus years. So I did the corporate gig for almost 20 years. And then in August of 2016, I decided it's time to follow my passion and do what I love. So I quit corporate and started Rebellious. Now, how I got to that, I've always loved and had passion for fitness and movement and motivating people. And I've taught any kind of format. If you remember the time when step aerobics was out and was big, that's the time when I started teaching. And I've done that. I've done the high-low. I've done the kickboxing, the Zumba, the spinning, the cycling, the weight classes. And then in 2012, I discovered Pilates. And I absolutely fell in love with the method. And it was very different than what I was used to doing before. So that kind of took me on a different path. Now I have a home-based Pilates studio, and that's what I teach most of the time. And I found it fascinating because it's great for the body and it's great for the mind. So I opened a Pilates studio on the side. I do products. My daughter had a febrile seizure when she was 1. My dad passed away from lung cancer at age 48, and the cancer was caused by environmental toxins. My dad was very healthy, or so we thought. So all of this has also gotten me into environmental toxin reduction. So I help people reduce environmental toxins by using safer alternatives, cleaner alternatives. Wow. So those are the big pieces of Rebellious. And because of what I do, I work with a lot of people with chronic disease, with a lot of people who are in pain. That naturally has kind of taken me along to work with some, especially in functional medicine physicians, chiropractors, physical therapists, people using those mobilities. Because Pilates it's truly astonishing how it approaches the body and how it works. It's all about alignment and precision. And it's amazing what kind of results people can reap when doing the practice consistently. So that is kind of how I am where I am today. And the vision and the purpose is constantly expanding. And along with that, I have been pushed on my own personal journey for which self-care has been a huge part. So I'm a huge proponent of, inspiring people and motivating them and wanting to do self-care and helping them create those habits, right? It's not so easy to do in our busy society.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, one of those things, we talk about habits. I want to stick on that lily pad for a second. And, this is something that is incredibly beneficial. I know that my daughter, for example, has scoliosis. And one of the best things that the physicians, the chiropractors, everybody that we've consulted over the years has said is stretching, exercise, stretching some more, yoga, just getting out there and doing sports that will help this to, create that elasticity. And habits are very difficult to form, especially for, patients who are in pain, for doctors who are busy. So how do you, from a habits perspective and developing healthy habits, what are some of the trend lines that you see that kind of help our readers and our listeners today kind of say how, the data is out there. If you do something for 30 days, you'll develop a habit. Well, that 30 days is pretty hard. And, but what are some of the trend lines and the data saying about developing healthy habits that you've seen in person working with patients and clients and doctors and so on?
So, it's very interesting. I kind of work with, like I mentioned, a lot of people with chronic disease and pain, but then I have the other side, which is the super athletic people. And then, of course, some people in the middle. But for people who are in pain or are dealing with a disease, I think for them that creates urgency, right? They all of a sudden they figure out, I cannot continue living the way I've been living because that is not working out for me. And I can either accept to live in pain or I can do something to change it. So those people who are in bad pain that is limiting them from living an active lifestyle, keeping up with the kids or the grandkids, or, even sitting in a desk at work because their back is killing them, that is pretty motivating for them to want to change their habits. So I think, unfortunately, pain and being in the condition of pain where your body is just saying no more, it's a pretty big motivator for people to want to change their habits. The sad part is we don't want to get to the point of pain to realize that we have to change our habits. But I think for a lot of people, reality is once disease strikes, that's a wake-up moment, right? Other than that, I think very honestly, a big part of change and creating healthy habits is your mindset and your true desire of why you want to change. I think, if you read magazines, if you follow social media, there is always the newest, coolest program, the best thing, this ingredient is great. 2 years later, this ingredient is the worst. So there is a lot of fads that go back and forth. I'm a big proponent of moderation. And I always tell people, I have clients who love to drink a lot of wine at night. So if I tell them, well, starting tonight, you're not going to have any wine, chances are that's not going to work, right? But if you tell them, okay, well, instead of having 3 glasses of wine, let's start by having 2 glasses of wine and maybe, eliminate Monday as a glass night. And you gradually start adjusting those habits. I think a lot of times it is easier to see an adjustment in habits. And I think the other part is when people start feeling good and saying, oh, there is something to that. Or another habit, sleep. People don't realize how crucial quality sleep. And I'll tell you, I'm going to speak as somebody who is changing my habits because I used to sleep about 3 to 4 hours a night until I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue. Once you start not being able to function and you see, oh, all I have to do is sleep, which sounds easy, but we know it's not always so easy, right?
Yeah.
That becomes a motivator. But I think we have to be realistic. If we tell, if somebody is always eating pizza, never worked out in their life, and all of a sudden is you have to eat fruits and veggies, you have to start exercising every day for 30 minutes, you have to cut alcohol. For somebody who has never had that lifestyle, those are huge changes. They sound very easy, but we know they're not. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's starting slow. Once people start feeling better, they're more willing to make a little bit bigger change the next time and a little bit bigger. And I will tell you, I think it's uncomfortable to make changes. Some people who come in pain, depending on what the type of pain is, some of them might start feeling worse for a while because, muscles that have not worked before are not now working, and those muscles are not so happy. And there are some people who say, I can't do that, and they quit. And what I have learned is that you cannot make somebody do something that they don't want to do, sadly. So it has to come from the person that they're willing and wanting to make change. To me, that's huge.
Well, and I think there's truth in the statement that says, a person who feels appreciated will always do more than is expected. And so, when there's, a relationship with, someone like you, with the patient, with the client, with the doctor patient, somebody who's saying, I'm your cheerleader, I'm your coach, and I'm here to, good job, this week. Yeah, we're all imperfect. We don't always get it right. We always, I think I'm gonna, have a dessert, or, you know, I didn't do any exercises the last couple of days, or, you know, I used to work out 5 days a week. I haven't been doing that, you know, at all. But, you know, having someone that says, it's okay, you know, we're going to move, as long as we're progress, not perfection is the goal here. And so for those, I want to lean on to jump over to the other lily pad here, and that's for those listeners who are in business, who are C-suite executives that you work with. You know, they have very busy, chaotic schedules, busy lives, stressful lives, you know, responsibilities with kids, responsibilities with their position in life,
Right.
education. You know, what has been some of the, I guess, success stories, but also after that, what are some of the challenges that they face that are different from those struggling with pain?
So, you know, I think this statement applies to pretty much everybody. One of the biggest hurdles for self-care is time. I don't have time. I have the kids, I have the school, I have the work, I have meetings, I have social obligation, volunteering. I don't have time to self-care. I think what we fail to understand is that if we don't self-care, over time, the way we function is not sustainable. So over time, you know, it might not be the ache and pains, but it might be the headaches. It might be I can't function as well. I can't focus as well. So once again, you have to meet the person where they are, right? If you tell them, well, starting today, you're not going to do X, you're going to do Y. That just doesn't work. So you have to slowly start planting the seeds. I would tell you, I have a client who is a very successful executive, and he works out like crazy. He overdoes it, right? He's on the other extreme. But he also drinks, I couldn't even tell you how many Red Bulls a day. And he drinks coffee. I mean, it's like I hear it and I'm like, oh my goodness. But if I tell him, well, starting tomorrow, no more Red Bull, right? That's not going to work. So all I tell him is, well, you know, this is what the Red Bull is doing to your system. This is how your adrenals function. You just give them food for thought. Those are smart people, right? So you don't need to, all you have to do them is give them the information. And then I'll get a text that will be like, oh, you know what? I didn't have a Red Bull today, or I cut off one Red Bull. Once again, once they see, and you know what? I didn't feel myself as anxious or as jumpy or as jittery. I felt calmer. You know, and I'll tell you, a lot of executives, you tell them, when you feel stressed out, take a deep breath. What is their reaction? They kind of look at you, oh, you're one of those hippie people, roll their eyes, right? Mm-hmm. I had a client, she has a very, very stressful job. She's actually a nurse, and she works with Alzheimer's patients, right? So very emotionally, mentally challenging job, but also very physically demanding, because a lot of those people, she has to turn them around to service them. Severe back pain, neck pain. And I asked her, and she also has a family, volunteers a ton, she doesn't stop. So one day I asked her, do you meditate? And she said, oh, I don't have time for stuff like that. So I was like, okay. And you know, this is the other thing, when a body is stressed, you can absolutely see the way the body is moving and how that stress impacts movement. It is absolutely fascinating. So I can always tell when somebody is stressed, even if they don't realize how stressed they are. So we finished the workout, and I said, while I finish cleaning up, I said, why don't you lie down here? I'm going to put some nice music and you just chill and relax for just a couple of minutes. I think she was so tired and stressed, she was open to that. She said, sure. Well, guess what? Next workout, we didn't do that. The workout after that, she said, do you remember that one time you put nice music and you let me relax for a couple of minutes? Can we do that again, please? Wow. So it's slowly giving people the experience of what it feels like to slow down. To the 2 points that you brought up, you know, having a cheerleader. I think that's a challenge for people, right? Because all of a sudden you go home, you've had a stressful day, and you tell your spouse, well, now I'm going to go meditate. And your spouse is going, what? Like, we have dinner to cook, kids' homework to do, whatever. And all of a sudden you feel selfish that you want to spend a couple of minutes on yourself, right? So I think it is very important to have people in your life and a network or supporters who tell you, you have to take care of yourself, and it is okay to set boundaries and say, this is my time. And it doesn't have to be 2 hours. It can be 5 minutes, and then it can grow to 10 minutes and then 15 minutes. I'll tell you, I think the other thing that's important is that the people around you who first don't see your self-care as something valuable, once you start turning into a better spouse, a better parent, a calmer person, all of a sudden they'll be intrigued with like, what did you just do? You're just breathing for 5 minutes and that's the result I'm seeing. You inspire then those other people to want to embrace those self changes, right? So it doesn't have to be starting tomorrow, I will spend an hour and a half on myself. Start with 5 minutes, see how that feels. And then, like I said, the results speak for themselves. That motivates you. So that is what I see. Start introducing small snippets to people. Start helping them feel and experience the positive benefits. And I think then they're a lot more open to trying and to sticking with it.
Well, and then let's talk a little bit about meditation and breathing. I mean, companies like Apple have found it so important to incorporate, a breathing component to their Apple Watch. I've got one, and I'll tell you, I don't follow the prompts as often as I should, but I'm grateful that they're there. And when I do try to take that moment to either just sit back from the responsibilities of the computer, from, I get home, things are chaotic there, dinner is finally, done, and you just kind of look at the watch, you're making a couple of things, but you're trying to do those deep breaths. I think that for some who run that busy hamster wheel, the idea of meditation is, well, that's going to be 30 to 45 minutes
Right.
of like transcendence,
right?
and it's weird, and I just don't understand it. Who has time for that? So explain, those small doses, like, putting on the music, for just a minute, and just sitting there quiet. Ask if should your eyes be closed? Should your eyes be open? Does it matter how your palms are? Just, do I need to sit crisscross applesauce? I think a lot of people just make it too complicated.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So what are some tips for those, well, can I do this in the car just for a minute while it's parked in a parking lot? I mean, we've had doctors say, before I go into the practice, I sit in my car for 15, 20 minutes because I'm trying to amp myself up to go in and do a job that I don't like.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
what are some of your thoughts?
I think you're so spot on. Once again, you read an article, when you meditate, you should sit like that, your hands should be like that. And, granted, once you get advanced into meditation, are there certain things you can do to make it your practice deeper? Yes, you can. But for most of us, we have to start somewhere. And I think starting with literally a minute of meditation versus not doing meditation has huge implications. I don't always have time to do long meditation. And I'll be honest with you, I don't always do a long meditation. Most of my meditation is a couple of minutes. And all I do is, you don't have to sit in a certain position. You don't have to wear certain clothes. You don't have to face east, west, south, north. Just what you just said, sitting in the car, instead of sitting there and having your mind spin on how much you hate your job, you're stressing about the case or whatever it is. Just free your mind of thoughts and just take a couple of deep breaths. That's all there is. The purpose of meditation is to quiet our body, right? Physically, but also mentally. For that 1 minute that you're meditating, your goal should be no other thoughts other than, let's say, that's why I like guided meditation, because I think it makes it easier for people to focus on the voice of what the voice is saying rather than trying to do it by themselves. But if you just close your eyes, and I tell people, focus on your breath, focus on your inhale and exhale as a way to take you away from everything else that's going on in your mind. That's it. It's as simple as that. Just don't think about anything else and take a breath. Does that sound simple enough and something you can do for 1 minute?
Yeah.
You can literally do it at the red light before you turn into your house, right? Take a deep breath, just quiet the mind, don't think about anything, go on. You can do it in the grocery store while waiting in line, nobody is going to know it. I tell that people about stretching, or working certain muscles. You can do that anytime and start small. I will tell you, my whole meditation practice started with sitting down for a minute and just taking breaths. That was it. And I could always tell that if I do that 1 minute, my day went completely different. Wow. That was pretty convincing for me that is something I should do.
Wow. Well, and we know that, we recently interviewed a couple of different functional medicine physicians and osteopathic physicians, and, breathing is such an important part of their treatment and their communication with patients. And I know that, we were one of the physicians we asked, what on your phone right now, what app are you using, that helps you support this? And she's like, the Calm app. We're not endorsing one app over another, but this was the example she gave. She said, that's my lifesaver every single day is I put on the app, it's called Calm, CALM, and it brings me, so much, it makes me more productive. And,
Absolutely.
and people using the breathing treatment, prompts on your Apple Watch, use these things. They're here for us. And I wish we could, in 100 or 150 years, look down and, look at the world and say, man, remember when those breathing treatment apps and, those prompts were just a starter? Now everybody's using them. Look how much beneficial and stress relieved a lot of populations or townships are, compared to the way it is right now. So, and, if you had any thoughts on that before we move on to the next topic.
So I will tell you my favorite meditation app. It's called Insight Timer, INSIGHT Timer, TIMER. Love it. I'm not getting anything from it. I just love it. They have a lot of guided meditations. You can also set up your own music that you play. So variety, and you can also pick how long you want your meditation to be. You can pick the topic of the meditation, whether it is anxiety reducing, stress relieving, or anything like that. Fantastic. Highly recommend it to everybody. And then, as far as breathing, I'll tell you, breathing is so powerful. And one of the few things, I was talking to another functional medicine practitioner, and she said, what is the first thing that you do to see how stressed somebody is? And I thought about it and I said, take a breath. So when you see how somebody breathes, a lot of people breathe from their shoulders, right? That's when you see it, when a lot of people say, oh my gosh, my neck is killing me, my upper back is so tight. Usually that's stress related, right? And when we breathe in this pattern, these are the muscles that get activated, right? So when you ask somebody, take a breath, that tells you a lot about their state
Mm-hmm.
of stress. So I'm sure you have heard about the breathing where you inhale and your belly goes out, and then you exhale, the belly comes in. In Pilates, we do something that's called lateral breathing, which is expanding the ribs sideways and then pulling them in. It allows you to take really deep breaths, but it also allows you to loosen out the muscles in the upper back, which is so powerful because, once again, that is when most people are stressed, carrying their stress. So absolutely powerful. And to the point that you made about the different apps, I think some of these things sound so easy. Take a breath and my day is going to go easier. Mm-hmm. Or listen to music for a minute and my day is going to, right? It sounds too easy to be true. Yeah. So therefore we dismiss it because it's too easy. Yeah. But if we try it and we find out how powerful it is, that's a huge bonus. It's easy and we can do it anytime, anywhere.
And we want easy, but then when we're presented with easy, we don't believe it because we've been taught that, well, you have to work hard, and that's
exactly right.
For those who do work hard, and those are all, competing wisdoms. I heard somebody say the other day, a stitch in time saves 9. Yet on the other side of that competing wisdom, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Fix it.
So, it's hard to understand what to believe, but certainly if you have a cheerleader or a coach and a physician in your life, or those voices in your life that will steer you towards productivity, towards health, those things certainly help. And so we want to jump on to another topic. We've talked about stress, we've talked about the importance of self-care and prioritization, but I want to dispel some myths that people, because I think there's confusion in the marketplace about what Pilates is versus just stretching. What is, we talked about meditation already, so we won't necessarily go into that and breathing, mm-hmm. But, yoga, versus Pilates? How is it different? Everybody, you know, well, I go to the gym and they have a cycling thing. So, you know, they offer a Pilates class, but I don't understand it because it's kind of a different word that, you know, I'm not that familiar with. So, you know, exercise physiology, you know, kinesiology, all those things start to kind of come into play in this world of, you know, breathing and stretching and health and functional medicine and so on. So talk to us a little bit about, you know, some of the myths out there about Pilates, how it's different from other
Forms of exercise.
Forms of exercise, yes.
So I think some of the biggest myths for Pilates are Pilates is for dancers, Pilates is for women, Pilates is stretching, Pilates is just like yoga. And I'll tell you, none of these are true. Pilates gained its popularity because dancers started using it, but Pilates was not designed for dancers. Actually, Joseph Pilates, who is the founder of Pilates, he was a very sickly child, and he dedicated his life to being active and having a full life. And he started studying the movement of animals. He did study yoga. He was actually into martial arts. So he truly was a genius. If you have never tried Pilates and try some of the exercises, you really wonder, like, how did somebody come with that exercise? And it's so effective, and the way it targets muscles. So it was developed actually by a man. So it's definitely not a female-oriented workout. And I'll tell you, the guys who do Pilates, my male clients, absolutely love it. And what's beautiful about Pilates is that Pilates is not just about stretching. Pilates is actually strengthening, stretching, and it's actually about controlling your muscles. And Joseph Pilates was huge that the mind controls our body and how we move. So to the point that you made, you know, a lot of people go to the gym and they've seen an exercise and they just repeat it, right? They're not sure why they're doing it. They're not sure what muscles should be using. They just watch and do. The problem is that is how a lot of people get hurt, because they do stuff that one shouldn't do, or they do them incorrectly. But Pilates is amazing because I also teach classical Pilates. Now, Pilates is also becoming very commercialized, right? So you see the gyms where they're doing exercises on the Pilates equipment and they call it Pilates, which is not the case. But I teach classical Pilates, in which we do a lot of repetition of the exercises. And what that does is create new neurological pathways of movement. So if you have, let's say, you know, scoliosis or some kind of imbalance or tightness, and let's say somebody's, you know, it doesn't have to be severe scoliosis, it could be barely there, but what you want to do is you want to activate the side that's asleep, because if you're right here, one side is short and one side is lengthened. Well, both of the sides are weakened because they're not in balance, right? So what we try to do in Pilates is we try to wake up the side that's shortened, and we try to get the other side to balance out. So it is very, very powerful. There is a lot of precision. And, you know, to the point that you made earlier about scoliosis, stretching is great, but you don't only want to stretch, you also want to strengthen. Because when a muscle is overstretched, or for example, when there is hypermobility into the joints, that is also the other extreme, right? You don't want to be there, because hypermobility can also, that's more in the joints, but it can also lead to problems. So Pilates is great because a healthy muscle is one that exhibits strength, flexibility, endurance, and control. And Pilates works on all of those four things. So it creates very balanced muscles and body. And as far as how it is different from yoga, it's actually quite different. There is a lot more focus on the core. And we also use equipment, which is different than yoga, in which case they only do the mat. In Pilates, you can do the mat workout, but there is a lot of equipment that we leverage to challenge the body with resistance.
Great.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and let's talk a little bit about, you know, some of the, I think, what are some of the simple things that, you know, those doctors, those patients listening, that they can do, you know, that doesn't require necessarily, like, they just say, well, this is all great. I'm going to, in my very busy, stressful schedule, I'm going to go do some more research on this. Let's talk about some of the tools that they can add to their personalized self-care kit.
So you know what? I think one of the easiest things that I have started teaching each and every client is posture and creating awareness of where we are in space. A lot of us just don't. Do you ever stand and think, well, where are my shoulders? Where's my back? Are my abdominals engaged? Is my tush engaged? What are my feet doing? We don't usually do that, right? So Pilates starts with creating that awareness of where we are in space and how we stand, right? So, for example, a lot of people come like this because the computers, the phones, right? So just the pure awareness of, am I here or am I here? That in itself is a huge difference. Again, speaking of that tension into the upper back, right? Just try this and see the huge difference that it creates, right? So from a postural perspective, and maybe I can record a little video and send it to you of like how to get into a good posture position. That's huge. And that's so small, and you can do it while you're examining the patient. Once you become aware of it, your body starts searching for it because your body realizes this no longer feels good. This feels good. This feels like I can take a good breath. Not to, most people care about the visual effect of it, right? Well, this looks a lot more confident and better than this. But this think about where the lungs are, right? So when we are here, and speaking of breathing, your breath can be that, that deep because your lungs are compressed, right? So I think posture is something that's easy. I would tell you if somebody is really weak or they have had poor posture for a long time, just sitting up here all day long, that's going to be a lot of work. That's a lot of work for all of us, but especially for somebody who is not conditioned. But look how different this looks than this, right? And then you have the slouching into the chair. Or I see how some people watch TV or read books, slouch into the bed. And then the next day they say, oh, my neck is killing me. I don't know why. I have to get on my mom's case for that a lot. So little things like that can be can make a huge difference.
Wow. Well, and what are some of the things that maybe they can do just, while they're at their office, while they're, at home? Most of us are working from home right now, and certainly posture is such a huge, important deal. We work with a number of chiropractors and talk with them on a regular basis, and that's posture is their business. And talk a little bit about some of the unique, maybe just simple things that they could do that just take 30 seconds or 2 minutes that they could do in their office or at home.
Okay. So number one, I would say, and that's an easy one, be aware of your shoulders rolling back and activating the upper back muscles, right? That right there should feel really, really good. Another thing, as far as very quick one-on-one engagement of the core, is in Pilates, we say we pull the ribs together and we stretch the torso up. So if you just take a breath in and then exhale and pull the ribs together and lift up, you should feel an instantaneous, like if you have back pain or back pressure, you should feel the spine decompress almost. Right there, those two things, big difference. And you can do this, like I said, while you're examining a patient. You can do this in the grocery store while you're sitting there. You can do that while you're sitting at your desk. You can do that while you're watching TV, right? Simple things like don't slouch. When you lean back and you bunch up your back, where does the pressure go? Goes into the back, right? So put a pillow behind you, right? Support that back. Think about when you're looking down. My daughter, we were having this conversation with my daughter because I've started showing her how being on the iPad and technology all day long tightens up her neck. So sometimes she'll be like, Mama, can you try and see if I've been on technology too long today? And I'll be like, yeah, look how tight this is. So she by herself came up and said, what if I put my iPad a little bit higher so my head is not down? That is a great solution, right? So if you have a computer or if you're on the computer all day long, raise the screen a little bit up so you're not here, but rather in a neutral position, right? These are all little things. When you're sitting at a desk, if your legs are dangling, put a box, you can put a shoe box to get your feet off and in alignment. You want to have right angles when you're sitting, right? So that there is less pressure and compression onto the spine. And crossing of the legs, right? So I'll show you. Now my legs are not crossed. Watch what's going to happen to my form when I cross my legs. Did you see how I went sideways? Well, if I do that all day long, what is happening to the spine? So uncross the legs and I go center, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's stretching at the desk. You know, one of my favorite stretching for opening the chest is put one hand behind the other, put two hands behind the hard part of the head, not on the neck, and then open the elbows and pull the shoulder blades down and just look straight ahead and then push the head against the hands. If you try that, that feels amazing. It opens the chest, activates the back, speaking of sitting tall. And then all you have to do is just let the arms down and your posture is much better than here, right? Yeah. So stretch at the desk, sit up tall and take a nice deep breath. Turn to the side and exhale. Repeat on the other side, right? Little things like that can make a huge difference, because the way we get in trouble, I mean, one is stress, but two is if we move in a repetitious way. So I have a doctor who is a GI doctor, right? The patterns of movement of what she does all day long is the same. So she's very one-sided because she always has rotation to one side. So what's happening to her spine? She's twisted, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to work on untwisting her. So stretching, and she says she now takes a mat actually to the hospital when she has a long night. She does overnight shifts and she will just stretch. Another exercise that is great to do if you have a couple of minutes is if you go against the wall, move your feet slightly forward, soften the knees and plant your entire torso against the wall, including the shoulders, and just stay there and breathe. Creates awareness around posture and where you are in space. Does that help?
Absolutely. I think that those are all amazing tips. And my question is, as I can see them, readers and listeners kind of thinking is, wow, this has a lot more. I never talk about these things with my patients. Is what the number one thing I think that people are probably thinking is, I need to really think about this, but I need to get it right. And because I'm not the expert in, kinesiology, stretching, those types of things, and that's where I would refer them out. And, patients don't want that. They want their doctor, they want their, to be equipped with the resources. And so, first of all, we're going to do a little bit of plugging here because I think it's important that they connect with you, okay, as well as, what other, data is out there to support, and this is probably a rhetorical question. People are thinking, well, there's lots of data out there, but what resources are you reading? What journals are you looking into, that help you continue to learn? But first, let's talk about how do they connect with you if they want to learn more or get connected to you?
So my company's name is Rebellious International. So my website is www.rebellious, REBELLIOUS-INTL.com. And from there you can find the contact information. I am on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn under my personal name, Maria Angelova. And I'd love to connect with everybody. And as far as resources, I'll tell you one of the best resources you can find. It's a tiny, tiny book. It is called Return to Life. And it's actually written by Joseph Pilates. It was written in the 1940s. But if you read that book, you will be astonished about the things that he writes about there, of how fast-paced our society is and how poorly we take care of our bodies. Imagine that was 1940s. He'll probably be very appalled of what he sees today. But in the back of the book, there is illustration of some of the Pilates exercises. There is another book which I'm blanking on the name, which is an amazing book, has some great stretches. It's Geoff is the guide. I think it's Geoff. And it has to do with, he talks a lot about how we get in trouble in our bodies by being stiff and being imbalanced. When we're in balance, how certain muscle categories start compensating for others. That creates misalignment, and then how that negatively impacts the body. And I'll tell you, I do a lot of studying of the body. I'll tell you, if I had to give one big tip to everybody, if they're like, well, I don't know what to pay attention to, is watch for alignment. And alignment is shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, right? We're looking for that box. So any exercise that the person does, you want them to be in alignment. I have a client who, I know I'm kind of sidetracking, but she has severe hip pain, and she has been to all sorts of specialists and all sorts of training facilities. And she's like, I don't understand how it is that you can help me when nobody else has been able to help me. And if you see what we do in class, you'll be like, you're barely moving. We're barely moving, but what we're doing is we're moving in alignment. I'm making sure that her hips are in alignment, because for her, one hip is so strong, the other one is so weak that when she moves, this hip is doing nothing, right? It's hanging out there. So when I make her even out the hips and do, let's say, bridges, and she has to sustain that hip, she can barely move, but she's moving in alignment. So if I had to give a big tip, is watch for alignment. And as far as books, I'll tell you, if I tell you how many times I have read Contrology, Return to Life, you'll probably laugh. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny book. But every time you read it, you get something more out of it. And you literally study it. And I have spoken to some of the senior teachers, Pilates teachers, and they keep referencing Joseph's book. And I'm like, what book are you talking about? And they're like, Return to Life, that tiny little book. It has so much wisdom in it. And it's probably like 10, 12 bucks on Amazon. It is a fantastic investment for anybody. And you can read it in no time. It is a fantastic investment to give you an idea of what Pilates is all about.
Well, and I think that is great advice. And one of the things I think that, I think about, we want things to be simple. We want them to be easy, but we don't, necessarily think that they should come too easy. So we don't believe that they'll work. But then when we think about, we bump into the idea of, regular exercise and, eating right. And then I bump into the idea of going to, a doctor, and it's like, oh, he or she's just going to tell me all the things I already know that I should be doing that I'm not doing. And then I bump into, a chiropractor, and I'm like, oh yeah, the importance of alignment, posture, and spinal health, and so on. Then I bump into Pilates, and it's like, well, I look at the pictures behind you, and I think she's going to ask me to do those things right away, and I'm not that. And I think, well, and then the data is, you can't turn social media on or the news on or a medical journal over and note that there's data supporting that we're all overweight, we're eating completely unhealthy, we're obese, and in many ways we are lazy, myself included. I wish I was exercising as much as I should be, but I'm not. And so I think for the majority of people, who may have those doctors and those clients who, have those patients that struggle with just, and I talk to doctors a lot and say, the amount of empathy and grace that you have for your patients, because, you told them 3 months ago, eat right, exercise, or this is going to happen, go see this guy, he's going to help you, eat right, exercise. I had a whole genome sequencing test done not too long ago, and it was interesting that a lot of the things that are, I guess you could say my genetic birthright, in a negative form, from a health perspective was, the physician spent about 3.5 hours with me. We talked all about from hair loss to, to cancer, and it was diet, exercise, and those things will help you more than you realize. And so in that, when we bump into exercise, we also, doctors, I think, bump into the unfortunate, and you have them as well, I'm sure, as your clients, is those who are just plain, unmotivated, dare we say lazy, we're probably under our breath, like, I've told you, like, do it. You got to do those things. And again, I'm guilty of it too. But, how do you, and you may have already covered it, but I think it's important to go back and recover this is, how do you motivate the behavior? We've talked with a number of concierge medicine doctors, functional medicine doctors, psychologists, neuroscientists, physicians, and the importance of behavior and changing a person's behavior is so critical. But, how do you motivate? How does a doctor motivate, a patient who is overweight, who is obese, who maybe is unmotivated and a little bit, maybe or a lot lazy, that just says, I'm not going to do those things. I'm not going to do Pilates, because you obviously suffer with, you obviously are suffering with those patients and those who are those clients that say, I told you to do those exercises, but you're not. And so you come in here and we're starting all over again. So
I'll tell you, my approach to fitness generally is very different than probably what's out there in the marketplace. My big premise is fall in love with movement and you don't have to work out a day in your life. And I think I would say the problem that we have today is that people are taught of all the things they have to do, right? You have to go to the gym. You have to do this workout. You have to get your heart rate here. You have to do this, right? So then instead of the gym becoming your escape and your quiet time, it's one other thing you have to do on your already long list of things you have to do, right? How different would it feel instead of if I told you you have to do X, I told you, go do whatever you want to, whether it's dance or walk or bike or swim or Pilates or yoga or whatever it is, and just enjoy. Don't think about, like, to what we talked about meditation, you have to sit like that. Where are your hands, right? We overcomplicate it. And then, I can't work out because I don't have a heart rate monitor. 20 years ago, we didn't know what the heart rate monitor was. We still worked out and we were fine, right? So I think there is a thing that we overcomplicate things. And I tell people when they come for a consultation, I tell them, Pilates may not be the right thing for you. It might be yoga. It might be Zumba. It might be whatever. It might be biking. It might be walking outside. But you just have to find something that you love doing and enjoy doing so that you'll be motivated to do it. Being told what you should do usually doesn't work. And I'll tell you, a friend of mine, she called me, her mom moved in town, and she called me and she said, I need your help. My mom is obese. She has diabetes. She has this and that. Can you work with her? The first question I asked her was, does your mom know you're calling me, right? Because a lot of times, just like with patients or clients, and it's even harder with those who we love around us, right? Because if we see they're going through something, of course we want to help them. I think it is very important to know that, once again, if somebody is not ready to do something, we cannot make them do it. It has to be up to them. So I told my friend, I said, I would be willing to work with your mom once I talk to her and see that she's on board with wanting to work with me. So I met her, and, I tell her, I had to do a very different routine with her than usually what I'll do, because she couldn't even come to the studio, right? I had to go to the house, and we started with, okay, we're just going to sit tall, breathe, and move our arms and our legs off the floor. That's where we started, right? And then I started developing a personal relationship with her. We started making it fun, and we started laughing. You let your belly go. Let's start again. She started having fun. So right now, now it wasn't about she's working out. She's enjoying it. And she would text me. She's like, I look forward to our workout. This is not a woman who likes to work out, right? Yeah. Another big thing that I tell my clients is always respect your body. So even when we're in a group class, I always tell them, do not watch what the person next to you is doing. You do what your body is allowing you to. And maybe yesterday you were able to do an exercise. Today you're tighter or more stressed out, or you didn't eat well, or you didn't sleep well. Well, then you're going to limit your range of motion and do a modification, right? So I'm huge about teaching people to respect their bodies, because if you make somebody who is in pain or has never worked out, all of a sudden they go to the gym and lift up weight, put heavier weight, like compete with that person. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, I feel like crap. I feel like I'm the weakest one. I'm comparing myself to others. I've never done this before. That's how people get injured, right?
Mhm.
And I think the other thing is being upfront with people. You know, I actually love to work out. Everybody thinks that's crazy, but I actually look forward to my working out time because that's my meditation. That's my time away. That's my self-care, right? But do I have bad habits? Absolutely. Like people will see me and they're like, do you drink? I drink. I don't drink every night and I don't drink a lot, but here and there I'll have a glass of wine. Do you eat pizza? I do. I don't eat pizza every night, but we have once a week, we have pizza night. So, you know, I think it's also important to know that we don't have to be saints and we don't have to be perfect, right? We just have to find that balance that works for us. And I think one other thing I want to mention in as far as, you know, being a, especially as a physician, you know, like as a teacher, it's hard to, like you said, you tell a person you should do this or you should not do this, right? This exercise is not for you. Well, they go home and try it out anyway. Then what happens? They get injured.
Mhm.
And you know, you have told them that exercise is not for you. We also have to realize that we cannot take responsibility for other people's choices, right? And that's a hard one because, you know, I would speak for myself. I love working with people and I love helping people. So when I see somebody not feeling well, that doesn't feel good for me. But I have to give myself grace and say, I told you so. You chose to do something that you were told not to do, or vice versa. You were told you should exercise and change your diet, but you didn't. So now this is what happened. A lot of times there is a lot of guilt that tries to creep up in us, right? And I think it's very important and should be part of our personal growth to learn to know when it's something that we can control versus when it's something that we cannot control.
Yeah. Well, and certainly I remember a physician a couple of years ago said, you know, patients, they are the best part of the job. And at the same time, they're the worst part of the job too, because, you know, I do assume a lot of responsibility as their care provider and as, you know, their friend, hopefully in some cases. So as we come in for a landing with Maria Angelova, she's the founder and CEO of Rebellious International, and you can connect with Maria in the links above and below, as well as read her bio and check out her classes and you know what she's doing. But I have, as we come in for a landing on a couple more questions, you know, you have a number of different types of clients, a number of different types of, you know, from C-suite to overweight to, you know, in pain. You know, what type of care providers do you see that, you know, if you were to have your, you know, if you were to put apples in a basket and each one of those apples or fruits represents a certain person or coach or physician or, you know, exercise person in their life, you know, what would that fruit basket of health and coaches and physicians look like? Maybe you've got it and you're surrounded by it every day, but you see, you know what, you don't have this person in your life to help you on this aspect of that. And we're not trying to necessarily say that doctors should refer out, because that
Right.
is not appetizing to a patient that says, well, you don't care about me. You just gave me a business card that said, I don't deal with that. Go over there. That says, I don't care about you, whether you like it or not. You might not think that it does communicate that to patients, but it really does. So I'll let you kind of jump on that question and see what your thoughts are for doctors.
So I would tell you personally, you know, I think I'm not a specialist in everything. So I get a lot of times asked questions on nutrition, and I know the basics of nutrition, and I can tell people what I do and what I know. But I always tell them, if you want somebody who can help you in the nutritional aspect, I have a bunch of colleagues who can help you. And then, do you want to eat plant-based? Do you care about, you know, maintaining a stable insulin level? I have different type of health coaches in the nutritional space that I can refer you to. So I think I'm just being upfront with people with saying, this is where I can help you, and this is where my knowledge ends. And if you want more knowledge, I can refer you to somebody else. I work with a lot of chiropractors. I personally am a huge believer in chiropractors. And the way I explain to people why I would refer them to a chiropractor is, I talk to them about, in Pilates, we talk about the spinal health, right? The flexibility of the spine and why we want to protect the spine. Many people don't think about the spine when they do exercise, right? But what's inside the spine is actually the spine protects our nervous system, right? Which is, we don't think about the nervous system until something goes wrong and we can't move, or we realize, oh, the nervous system controls absolutely everything in our body. So if the nervous system doesn't function well, that does not serve us well. And I have people who say, well, I don't want to go to a chiropractor because I don't like to be cracked, which is fine. I have I work with chiropractors who do not crack. I have work with different type of chiropractors who have different type of approaches. So explaining to people why I think, I have a client whose left glute would not fire up. And she went to physical therapy. She actually did go to chiropractic. She did x-rays and she was told, well, that's just how your body is. And I'm like, no, something is off. Well, she found a chiropractor who found out her tailbone was off, adjusted her tailbone. Guess what? Her glute fired up right away. So I think explaining to people why we're sending them to certain person, I think also gives us credibility. And then the cool part is I have one client who was very resistant to go to the chiropractic, and I could tell she was off. And I tell people, I can help you with movement. I cannot help you to adjust your spine. You have to go to a specialist. Finally, she went. She loved the chiropractor because she's very gentle. She doesn't crack. Guess what? Her hip problem went away. And then she came to class and she started telling to other people, well, you know what happened? That chiropractor Maria recommended. She helped me so much, blah, 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 right? So once again, they experience it. But I think it also goes to the trust factor, right? I personally do not just refer people for the sake of referring. I refer people when I know they need to be referred. So I would say a lot of nutrition is a huge part of our health and our well-being, right? So a nutritionist is, I have a few of those in my basket. Chiropractors, like I mentioned, I work with a lot of chiropractors, functional medicine doctors, yes, because sometimes people would say, well, I'm feeling foggy. I don't feel like I'm functioning at my best. Well, maybe, you need to go check your adrenals. Oh, I have thyroid disease. Well, have you investigated why you have thyroid disease? So functional medicine doctors, I work with, I have some referrals from a rheumatologist. So I would say it's a pretty wide area of docs, and I'm sure I'm forgetting people now, but I work with, people who do energy healing. I know that's, some people are open to that. Some people are not open to that. A lot of coaches, life coaches, right? That is an area that I'm also slowly getting into based on my personal journey and seeing how our mindset works along with our body. I think our mindset is a powerful thing, right? So working with people or referring people to professionals like that who can help them with mindset is huge. So I would say it's a pretty wide array of people. And, and if somebody says, I always tell people, like I mentioned to you, I work with alternative, safer products. I always tell people, if you think you're having a heart attack, don't debate on what to do. Call 911 and go to the hospital, right? There is time when you just go the Western medicine route and you're smart about that. Don't try to play doctor. I don't try to play doctor. I don't try to pretend that I know everything. Go to the specialists who know what they're doing. I can only help you so far.
Great. Well, and I think that that's important for doctors to, the reason we covered that for those listening and reading is, and watching this is explaining the referral, explaining the reason why, more so than just here's the card of somebody, I don't do that. You really need to go see a specialist. And, and usually that's the end of the conversation, and the patient's just kind of left with this jaw drop moment of, oh, okay, wow, okay, thanks a lot,
Right.
And you're just left and thinking with no answers, but explaining the reason why behind the referral, taking 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes to explain that, we're not getting that out of our doctor-patient relationship inside of the exam room. And many people know that, I say this a lot, it's not about being the best doctor in the world anymore. It's about being the best doctor for the world and for your patients and for your local community. And, if you take the time to explain why you're doing something, a patient who feels appreciated, a person who feels appreciated, it's proven facts. They will do more than is expected. And imagine if you had a patient base or a client base, or people in your community who are now following your advice, maybe not to the letter, but, let's say 7 or 5 out of 10, do exactly what you say for the most part. That's real life change. And a lot of communities would really come back and have a lot of that reverence and respect for their care provider teams that are surrounded by. So have a functional medicine doctor that you're talking to. We've talked with a number of functional medicine concierge physicians over the last couple of years. They're vitally important. They have a wealth of resources. Have that nutritionist available to talk to, because we as patients think, well, our doctor has all the answers. They took all that school, and you don't have to sit in across from a doctor in the exam room very long to realize there are things that they just say, I think you need to go see a specialist, that they don't know. And having a good specialist that can understand that particular need is so important versus just saying, here's a business card, I'll see you in 3 months, or I'll see you in 2 weeks, or see you next time. But I want to talk last couple of questions with Maria Angelova, the founder and CEO of Rebellious International. You can connect with Maria in the links above and below. But I want to talk a little bit about social prescribing. And we've talked a couple of years ago, I stumbled onto this idea of social prescribing where, really for concierge doctors, because they have a better relationship with most of their patients, it was an idea that was, out there in medical journals and in other places that was kind of, just starting to being talked about. And it was really getting to know your client, getting to know your patient a little bit better, that says, it's funny and I've even seen it on sitcoms where it's like, what strange habit does the old man have now? Like, oh, he's fixing cars, or, she's, knitting, grandma's knitting. It's not just for older people, but I think that, the idea behind it was to say, I'm this XYZ provider, care provider in your life, and I have a walking group. For example, true story, there's a walking group that the physician has, and every week they meet. And whether the physician's there or not, he's kind of the quarterback of the organizer of the thing, but there's always, a VP walker, who's kind of, encouraging people and encouraging them to show up. Here's where we're going to meet. Here's what time we're going to be there on Wednesday night or whatever. But, how important is it that these healthy hobbies, these, relationships that you have that says, it's beyond just sending them to another doctor or another specialist or somebody else and saying, you should do this. But how important among your client base is those healthy hobbies of saying, I think you should, it's not social prescribing that I think you should go hang out on social media or hang out with other people. It's, no, I think you need to find a healthy hobby.
So, I always encourage people to do something that they love. Whether it's a hobby that they do with somebody else or something that they do, it's just something that you do for yourself, something that recharges you, whether it's a dance club or whether it's, you may want to just dance around in your bathroom. That's your thing, right? Anything that, what I say is, fills your cup. So whether it's joining a running club, and, I have some people, for example, who come. I had a client who was recommended back surgery. She had to be moved in a wheelchair at airports because she would get really tired and in pain. She started doing Pilates. She started doing so amazing. I saw pictures of her on social media doing jet skiing, and I was like, oh my gosh, probably not the best activity for her. So I think you see people starting to feel good, starting to embrace life, right? Things that they couldn't do before, all of a sudden they're like, I can do anything that I want to. And sometimes I feel bad and being the one, well, that's probably not the right activity for you. I have another client who did so amazing. She started with so much pain, hip pain. She started doing so well, and she's like, I want to do Zumba. And Zumba is like the dance, a lot of hip moving. And I was like, oh, that's probably not the right thing for you to do. But fine. So, I have to be that person of reason also that says, based on how your body does, that is probably not the right thing to do, but find something that makes you happy, that makes you fulfilled. And, you know, like I do something that I call flow classes, which are, we come and we move from movement to movement. I put the music on and it's a bonding experience for the students. Last year, for the first year, I did like a holiday type of party. And it was so great because everybody who was there was cracking Pilates jokes, which probably most people who haven't seen Pilates will be like, what? But it's creating that community, that tribe of people who are excited about what they do. They're feeling better about their bodies and being able to be active, and they feel more fulfilled. They feel like they're more productive in life. They can do the things that they want to do. And that creates euphoria, right? And them wanting to do it more, not just in class, but also outside of class, which I think is the powerful part of it. So I think anything that you can do with your clients, you know, I started doing a free Sunday morning class that's more like traditional working out online, and it has been fantastic. Some of my clients are joining. They're like, I'm enjoying the different moves that we are doing. And I've been thinking about starting like a walking, not a class, but a walking activity. But now with the COVID, that hasn't happened. But I absolutely think those are great ideas. I think it is very important for clients to see you as a person, right? Not just as the doctor or the nurse or as their teacher, but also as a person who is truthfully dealing with some of the same issues they're dealing, you know? I would just guess physicians who are on the go, they don't always have time to eat a healthy meal, right? Or to squeeze their exercise. Same thing for me. Sometimes I start teaching really early. Sometimes I don't have time to drink water, which is terrible because I know I don't want to take bathroom breaks, right? I know that's not the right thing to do, but we are all human, and I think it's very important for people to see that we're not perfect. We all have to make those choices.
And that's the whole goal behind the concept of social prescribing. It has nothing really to do with medicine or clinical concepts. It's really building relationship between the care provider and the client or the patient to humanize them, because, you know, you and I both know this, that 5 words from a doctor mean more than 50 words about them. And, you know, we never, you know, we don't know our care providers really anymore. We don't know, well, do you practice what you preach? You know, you're a very overweight physician, or, you know, it's like, but you're telling me to eat healthy. Like, I don't understand. So, you know, those are some challenges that, you know, patients wrestle with when they consider, you know, the advice that they're getting. And so humanizing yourself and talking about your hobbies, your things that you like to do. And then if you like to do things, there's probably people in your client base and your patient base who want to do those things, like you're talking about starting a walking group, you know, and this physician did as well. And so, you know, I saw tremendous camaraderie and
camaraderie, that's a great word.
Retention, patient retention among his patients. So our guest today has been Maria Angelova of Rebellious International. She's the founder and CEO. And our last question for you, as we come in for a landing, well, actually, I have 2. And so one will be compartmentalized, and we'll cut this into its own little segment, I think. But, you know, for those dads listening that are, you know, watching this or reading, you know, working from home, or those moms as well, I want to focus on family, you know, quarantine, family pandemics, working from home. A lot more companies are still keeping and planning to keep their employees working from home. You know, it's great for traffic because the only traffic jam is at the coffee maker usually. But you know, they struggle with stress, and I know from working from home in my own experience, I probably was putting in more hours during those times in quarantine working, because the office is right there. It's only 10 steps
You're
away.
in the office.
Yes. So from a kid's perspective, a family perspective, you know, what advice do you have for moms and dads, those work from home individuals that say, you know, I think this sounds like something our family needs. This is a break in our day, a break in our week. We could do this every couple of days. You know, how would you suggest that they start partnering with you or connecting with this idea, this concept of Pilates, this stretching? I know, for example, my daughter, they incorporated it into the school not calendar, but schedule that my daughter was doing was, it was a cartoon that was leading her through some exercises. And she invited me to say, Daddy, you want to do these with me? And she's 6 years old. And so there we were in front of the front door, you know, just where there was an open area, and she and I were doing these things. So how would you encourage families, those work from home individuals and environments and kids to get on board with Pilates?
So, you know, I think one of the biggest things I would say is, as a parent who works from home, who, you know, all of a sudden has to be a parent, work from home parent, a teacher, and all of this together, is remember that it is okay for you to escape in a quiet place in the house, find it somewhere in the closet, whatever it needs to be, to just escape for 5 minutes, to just, like I said, take a couple of deep breaths, do meditation with an app or whatever it is that you need to take to just decompress out, right? I think it is very important that we set up boundaries with our family, with our spouses and kids, to know mommy or daddy deserves 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, to herself. I will tell, you know, I'm kind of lucky because my studio is in the house. I will tell my family I'm going downstairs to work out, and I'll close the door, and they know that unless there is a true emergency, they do not come down here. And then there are other days when I would have already done my work, and I'll tell my daughter, let's go downstairs and do some working out together, right? So she likes to dance around. So she'll put music, both of us would dance around, or both of us would do Pilates. Now the weather has been nice. I'll say, let's go for a walk. Do you want to take our bikes? Do we want to go for a bike ride? Or do we want to just walk? Or do you want to bike and I'll walk with daddy? Anything to keep us active, right? And sometimes I'll tell my daughter, today I have a really busy day, but you need to get your movement. So I don't care what you do. If you want to come and dance, if you want to jump rope, whatever, if you want to do the hula hoop, whatever it is that you need to do, it's on you to do your work. And my daughter is older, so that works. She's almost 10. But I think it is very important. Movement, to me, is one of the best pillars of self-care, right? So any kind of movement that you can do, again, don't think, well, I need to go to the gym for an hour, and then you don't do it, and you stress out because you haven't done it. Just do anything that you can. Go up and down the stairs in the house, you know, go in the cul-de-sac and just walk circles or jump rope or whatever it is that you need to do. You know, I have actually a kids Pilates class. So a lot of kids are joining that now, and that class is actually growing. You know, kids are liking it and enjoying it, and we do little challenges. Let's see who is going to have the best form today. So anything that you can do, don't think between boxes. You know, once again, we get stuck with, I have to do X or I should do Y. No, you can do anything that you want to and anything that you enjoy. And once again, invite the family, do a family workout. You know, we do, like the other day, we had a planking challenge. So my daughter was challenging my husband of who is going to hold the plank longer. And I was there to modify their form and cheerlead on them. So make it fun. Yeah. But just keep moving. But do not forget that you need to escape for 5 minutes just to do something by yourself, whatever that is for you.
Well, we all need it. And that's great advice, and we definitely all need that. And I think you said something earlier that if you fall in love with movement, I'll let you repeat that sentence.
If you fall in love with movement, you never have to work out a day in your life.
There you go. And our guest today has been Maria Angelova, the founder and CEO of Rebellious International. You can connect with her in the links above and below. Our final question for you is a two-part question. I know everybody's like, man, I thought he was done with questions. But no, we've got you here. You know, this is a rare moment because you're busy and so on. And we have the attention of those who are still listening and reading. How does it look to start in Pilates for those to kind of get over the intimidation factor, the unknown, and then the second part of that is you probably have many stories of success, you know, but if you were to hang up the shingles and say, I'm going to close down the studio, I'm not going to do lessons anymore, I'm going to retire on a beach and still continue moving, but that one success story that says, this is why I did this, So I'll let you answer those two-part questions. The first one was, how do you start and get over the intimidation and the unknown? What does that look like the first couple of sessions? And what's usually, what's a good gauge of, what does this cost? Is this, something that I need to budget for on a regular basis? And then the last part of that is, success story.
So when people start, I always tell them to keep an open mind, especially if people are starting on the equipment. I would say the first workout feels awkward is probably the best way to describe it, because the movements are not what we are typically used to. There is a lot of cues on engagement. And I personally am very big on how somebody engages, because if there are bad habits, we want to get rid of those. And when somebody is starting their practice, we don't want to start by creating bad habits, right? So my first thing I always tell people to set up expectation is, please keep an open mind and know this is going to be awkward, and be okay with that. And especially type A personalities, I specifically emphasize that it is going to be slower than when they're used to it, and it may not feel like a workout the first couple of times. And then once again, I have to meet the body where it is. So a first workout for somebody who is super aware, strong, doesn't have limitation, will look probably very different than somebody who is in a lot of pain, is weak, has a lot of imbalances, and has ways in which they have figured out how to move and compensate, right? But I try to make it fun, and have laughter along the way, and demonstrate. And I have mirrors here so that people can visually see what they're doing. And I use my camera a lot, which I'll tell you, it's very insightful. Just the other day, my husband was doing an exercise, and I said, "You're leaning back." And he said, "No, I'm not." I said, "Yes, you are." So we started having a husband-wife argument of whether he's leaning back or not. And I said, "Let me take the camera and show you." So I snapped the picture, and you can visibly, very obviously see how he's leaning back. And I showed it to him, and I could see the surprise in his eyes. Was like, I am leaning back, right? He goes, "So what am I supposed to do?" But this is very typical, because when we move, we don't really think how we move. We think we move correctly. And when we start changing the patterns of movements, our brain is getting so confused. Well, that doesn't feel right. It feels like I'm going to fall down. It feels like I'm losing my balance. So retraining the neurological system, the brain, to those new patterns and new postures takes time. And again, I educate people on that so that they understand why it is that we're doing what we're doing, rather than we're just not going through the motion. And I think most people find it fascinating.
Wow. Well, and our final question for Maria Angelova, the founder and CEO of Rebellious International, is that success story, that one that just says, I turned the keys before I turned the keys into the house and to the office, and this is that last one, or this group. It's exactly why I did this, why I started.
So there are so many great clients that come to mind as far as great successes that make me so happy when I see the results that they've had. But I would say probably the one that comes to mind right now is a young boy that I work with. He has cerebral palsy, and he's been doing Pilates now for about a year, close to a year. And the results that we're seeing with him are absolutely impressive. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, he does the group kids class now. We did a plank, and his planks, his arms were extended, his legs were extended, his form looked absolutely beautiful. And we practice in class, how to walk. He tends to naturally turn his feet in and his arms are bent. We practice, and when he walks straight with his feet in. We're working on making this more of his natural pattern, but his mom says he doesn't trip as much, he doesn't fall as much. His confidence is growing, and he's young, right? So we even joke with him, because every time he comes in, I say, "Are you excited to do Pilates?" And he always says, "No, I want to be at home." But then I haven't seen him during COVID, and he told me, he's like, "I actually miss being in the studio." And then he'll say little things that tell me that he actually enjoys Pilates, and I can see how he's enjoying and the pride that he gets when he doesn't exercise well. And for me, seeing him progressing and seeing truthfully, the life-changing impact Pilates has for him, that's just priceless.
Wow. Well, thank you for your time, Maria. Our guest today has been Maria Angelova, the founder and CEO of Rebellious International. So how, again, for those listening, coming in for a landing here, how do they connect with you? And what should they be doing first when a couple of questions that they might need to ask you when they want to engage?
So again, my website is www.rebellious-intl.com. My name is Maria Angelova. You can find me on LinkedIn. Last name spelling is Angelova. And Rebellious International is also on Facebook, Instagram. And just let me know that you've heard about me from, Concierge Medicine Today. I thank you, Michael, for having me here. And I do look forward to connecting with your community of amazing professionals.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your time, for what you're doing for your clients, your community, your work with in partnerships with different doctors' offices. We need individuals in services like this in our community because it's so important that we're all well resourced and we're all surrounded by a team, a fruit basket of opportunity and resources that will move us all in the right direction. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for your time today, Maria.
Thank you so much once again for having me here, Mike. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for the opportunity.